Who would win the Second American Civil War? I think it goes without saying that the biggest factor will be, of course, who does the military side with. The advanced technology as well as the level of organization is enough to squash any rebellion quickly. Yes, guerrilla tactics could be used, but besides just being a nuisance, the overall effect of this type of war would simply be negligible at best. In the first Civil War, it was only close because both sides had similar technology, rifles, cannons, and then armies, and well-trained generals. In the next Civil War, things will be significantly more imbalanced. The utilization of tanks, war helicopters, fighter jets, drone missiles, surface-to-air missiles, just to name a few, would make the war virtually unwinnable for the opposition. So that begs the question, who would the military side with? That's actually quite easy to answer. That would be whoever has legal authority to exercise them, and that is the President of the United States. Now, Congress would be able to do a few things to stop the President's troop deployment, but not very much. And yes, the Democrats do have a majority in Congress, but not large enough to quickly stop the President's power over his troop deployment. So while Trump is the sitting president, any civil war would be won by whichever side he supports. So, let's get into the scenario that would most likely lead to this conflict, and that's impeachment. With so much talk of illegal misdoings by the Trump administration and his ongoing FBI investigation into treason, it's not unlikely at all to see impeachment proceedings on the horizon. If the Democrats get a even slightly larger majority in the House, you can count on impeachment without a doubt. And once it begins, the side that will take the upper hand will be whoever moves faster. If the House can begin the proceedings and the Senate arrive at a verdict in a week or less, I don't see any problem with the Democrats being able to hold DC. Because after impeachment, the Trump administration will instantly lose all power over the military. Normally the next in line would be Vice President, but I believe that Pence will be tied in with the verdict and power will be given to the Speaker of the House, who would quickly move the military into DC and prevent it from being seized. I see this as the most likely scenario just because Congress will know the threat and make certain everything is in line to move quickly. But let's say enough Republicans don't go along with this and Trump doesn't get convicted right away. That gives the staunch pro-Trump supporters time to organize and begin to move. The goal: to seize DC and pressure Senate to end the trial immediately. With Trump still having power over the military, who will be there to stop them? I believe that the first wave of resistance will come from New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and the surrounding areas. The big cities will make forming the initial militias much easier, and they will be significantly closer to DC, which will be the battlegrounds, as opposed to the Republicans, who will be drafting from a larger geographical area. Now, Trump will be able to use the military to his advantage by shutting down roads and other access points while ignoring the path his supporters are taking. Additionally, I suspect the Republicans will have support of the local governments and have safe and easy passage, at least until they reach the Democratic majority held Chesapeake Bay area. This is where the first fighting will break out. And then the most important question, who would win? Well, let's look at a couple advantages and disadvantages each side has. The Republicans. If Trump hasn't been convicted yet, then he has the military, and that's personnel as well as supplies and technology on their side. Training and organization. Many people in the South are ready for such an engagement. There's also a much higher rate of weaponry per household than there is in New England, and the South's culture is more militaristic, I guess you could say. The next point is, I believe that the pro-Trumpers will have an easier time recruiting people who are actually willing to fight and die for their cause. Now the disadvantage, and this is the big one, time. The pro-Trump supporters will have the burden of taking the city before a verdict is reached. How long conquering a modern-day city is versus how long it could be until a verdict is rendered is very difficult to say, but once the might of the military is turned, it will be over. Now, let's look at the Democrats. Their obvious advantage is a larger population already grouped together and significantly closer to the action. Also, the battlegrounds will be sympathetic to the Democratic Army. Historically, this has been a very large factor. International support. Now, this is no surprise that Trump is widely disliked internationally. England, France, Canada, and Germany will be very quick to give support in any way possible. And on the other hand, I think China and Russia will probably just stay out of the conflict as much as possible. The media, with very few exceptions, Democrats have the mainstream media on their side. This will paint the Trump supporters as aggressors interfering in a legitimate court case. And lastly, the single largest advantage that the Democrats will have is big business, specifically the tech industry, which all have a very strong left-leaning agenda. Google, Yahoo, AT&T, and Verizon will make communication very difficult. And communication in urban warfare, and just warfare in general, is instrumental, and having superior communication abilities is an overwhelming advantage. GPS tracking, radio, cell phone, real-time satellite imaging. Democrats will have all of that. The Trump supporters won't be able to move an inch without the opposition knowing about it instantly. Not to mention, all their forms of communication will be jammed, or at the very least listened in on. For that reason alone, I have to say the Democrats would win. It just seems the Republicans have too much working against them. But alas, the future is impossible to predict. And with so many factors and possibilities, this would be a particularly complex conflict. Well, with the turbulent times we live in and the amount of hate growing, I think this is actually a likely scenario for the future. And after all, No president has ever been forcefully removed from office, so couldn't you say it's possibly overdue? Thanks for watching.